What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of FitBizU. I'm your host, Jill Coleman, and today I had a listener question. One of the listeners of FitBizU reached out, and she said, Jill, this might be a good topic. I don't know if you've covered this on the show before, but how do you deal with your business and showing up in your business in a big way when you have some serious life stuff going on? And she was mentioning that she's going through a breakup in a long term relationship. And especially if you've been in a long term relationship where you are cohabitating and you have things together and that's your support system, and maybe you don't have that anymore. You have the sort of emotional feelings and the turmoil on top of maybe the logistical upheaval of your life. And this is really a big deal. And I can't believe that I haven't done a show on this before. So thank you. You know who you are, who asked this question. We went and had a couple back and forth, and she even said, Jill, I know that you went through this in your own life, and so maybe you could speak to it. And I do want to share a little bit of context to you guys. I will definitely share a little bit of my story. I think you guys mostly know it. But I obviously just got married recently. This is my second marriage. My first marriage, I got married when I was young, got married in my 20s. And my ex-husband was years older than me. And we had this dynamic where we were both in the same industry, we were both in fitness and health and things like that. And we sort of grew up together online. We both had businesses. I was working at JillFit. He had a different company that I was also helping him with, but they were both online fitness businesses. And because he, in a way, was older and had more experience than me and had more education than me, he sort of took on like a mentor role. Anyway, fast forward, we were building this business together, and I was talking a lot about our relationship on social media. I was a blogger. And so I wouldn't say that we were like a power couple, but I do think that maybe people would have said that at the time because we were always together. We both worked from home. We were traveling quite a bit. And so I shared a lot of our stories on my social media and my blog and things like that. And we went through divorce. And long story short, I found out that he had been having an affair for a while, and we tried to work on the relationship for about a year. And then I decided to leave my marriage in 2015. I drove to Los Angeles from North Carolina and started a new life. Whenever you're going through something really big like that, especially if, and it doesn't have to be where you have like kind of a business that's sort of enmeshed, doesn't have to always be that, but you have a life together, whether you're getting married or you're in a long-term relationship with somebody or you're in a serious relationship with somebody. And so we can talk about that. We can certainly talk about other types of life upheavals like loss and grief. I just haven't had as much experience with that. So I don't feel like I'm an expert at talking about how to show up in your business when you're going through someone just passing away. So maybe, hopefully I don't deal with that anytime soon, but maybe we can talk about that later. So I will talk about relationship stuff because I do have experience with that. And having been a business coach for 15 years, I can tell you that I've worked with a lot of women who go through divorces while they're building their business. And it's not always because they're building their business, but sometimes it is because when you start to become an entrepreneur, and maybe previous to starting your business and being having this side hustle that turns into maybe a full-time hustle, maybe you had been a full-time mom. Maybe you and your husband had roles that had decided on early in your marriage. And then fast forward 15, 20, 30 years, and you're a different person and you want to do something for yourself. You want to start this business, you want to grow this business, you get excited about this business. Now, sometimes that is misaligned with the quote unquote boundaries or rules that you had established in your relationship early on. And so I have supported a lot of my female clients through relationship upheavals, divorce, separation, things like that over the years. And it's not because of, I always joke that like I'm going to wake up and there's going to be like a dude, like an angry husband on my front lawn with like a shotgun at some point, like because like your fault that my wife wants to follow her dreams. I just laugh about it. I'm sure that's not the case. And I'm sure there are plenty of supportive husbands and partners. And if you're listening to this, I'm sure yours is amazing. But all of that to say, sometimes, especially if you're like me, I'm in my 40s, it is technically midlife, you sort of wake up and you go like, all right, what's the next half of my life going to look like? And sometimes maybe if you put your own wants and needs aside or whatever that looks like, I'm not saying this has happened to the person who asked this question. I'm just thinking in general terms. Sometimes you wake up at 35, 40, 45, 50 and you go, I want to do something different. And I'm kind of done being the person I was for so long. And I put out for everyone else and I put my own needs aside. And I didn't really know that I had this. And you have a little bit of an existential crisis. I guess you call it a midlife crisis. And I think this is very real. And I know midlife crisis always gets this sort of negative connotation, the stigma of like that man who, sleeps with the secretary and buys a poor, a crazy car, a sports car, and like dates someone younger, whatever. What I'm talking about for most of my demographic are women who decide at some point that they maybe want something of their own. They spent years raising their children, they love their children, they have a lot of meaning in their life, but they also realize that at some maybe along the way they lost touch, or they got out of touch with the thing that they wanted to create, or maybe they didn't even know they wanted to create something, but they've gone through their own transformation and now they do. And so all of that to say, building a business is not neutral on relationships, and it is very important. And I'm not an expert on relationships, but I know one thing, that it is important to be with someone who understands what you're trying to do and supports you in it. Because y'all, if you have a business, a lot of times it is, and this is something that only entrepreneurs can really understand. You are thinking about your business all the time, and you love it because you want to work on it, you're passionate about it, you're excited about it, or maybe you have anxieties around it, like, is this thing going to work? And you're thinking about it constantly, you're innovating, you're listening to podcasts, you're doing all the things. And if you're not an entrepreneur, you don't understand that. And so if you start your own business, this is going to be a big part of your life that you're trying to make work. And it doesn't have to take away from your relationship. It doesn't have to take away from your kiddos or your other things and your hobbies and your activities and things like that. But it is a big part of your life. And it's something that you do need on some level support from. Now, again, I don't know, this was what happened with the person who asked this question. But this is just from my personal experience, that sometimes as a woman, starting a business can shake things up within a relationship. It doesn't have to, but I do think you should have a conversation with your partner around like what it means and what sort of your priorities, how they may shift as a result of doing this new thing. So I want to talk about this because I think this is a really good question. And when you have a lot of emotional turmoil or relationship turmoil in your life at the same time, it can be really hard to show up in your business. Your energy is just simply elsewhere. It can be hard to show up in your business. It can be hard to put on the smiling face for social media. You're distracted. And what came out of this conversation with this woman on social media was that I believe sometimes showing up on social media can feel hard because, number one, nothing is really happy right now, right? Like, you're not in a good mood. You're not in a happy mood. Those things don't feel light. Maybe things feel heavy. You're having a lot of conversations with your partner. You're going through some stuff. Showing up in a like excited, pumped up way and having the energy of someone that people wants to be in is like, it feels misaligned. Like, it almost just feels like you're put on a mask. And so there's this misalignment. And I think that if you have doubt, something that's going on in a relationship, I know for me, when I found out my husband had an affair, right, that was a huge knock to my confidence in many different ways, right? And so when you have self-doubt in one area of your life, I think it's really easy to extend that self-doubt into other parts of your area of your life. So you go, okay, well, God, like, I thought I had a great relationship and I just found out that we don't have a great relationship, right? I found out that things are changing here. And so maybe because this area of my life's not as solid, maybe that also means I'm not a great coach. Maybe that also means I don't really know what I'm doing over here either, because I feel like this part of my life, this relationship side and whatever, is really uncertain. Am I good at any of this stuff? And I think that's a really easy thing to make, even though they're two separate. If you think about it, how you are in business is completely different than your capability within a relationship or whatever. So I think that if we make it a reflection of our ability to help others, we're going to get into trouble. We may think to ourselves, well, I don't even have my shit together, so who would want my help? Like, look at my life. My life's a fucking mess. One thing I will say to you guys, and I think this is really important. I talk to a lot of coaches who go, well, Jill, how can I help someone with nutrition, which I still have every once in a while? I still binge. Jill, how can I help someone with my health when I have autoimmune? I just got diagnosed, my hormones all over the place. How can I help someone with their health? How can I help someone with their fitness when I've had an injury for the last 6 months and I haven't been able to lift, so I put on some weight? And we feel as though we need to be this 100% walking perfection of what their ideal client wants. And that's actually not what our clients want. I always think about it like this. When I watch I don't really watch the NFL, but my husband likes to watch, football on Sundays. And so we'll watch this, and like half of the coaches, I think they're getting better with this, but like half the coaches are like super out of shape, which is fine. Like, that's totally cool. But I always think to myself, like, isn't that ironic? They have these super fit guys who are like the most fit, athletic, high performers in this sport, listening to this dude who doesn't even exercise, right? It doesn't mean that he doesn't have the expertise to coach the team of athletes. If I go to therapy, I go to talk therapy. Guess what? My therapist doesn't have all their shit together. I go to my physician. He may have high blood pressure, right? She might be dealing with something, but she doesn't let it get in the way of her expertise to help someone else. And I understand that there can be this feeling of, I feel a little bit like a fraud. I feel like there's like a little of shame here. Maybe there's some uncertainty here. There's some insecurity in one part of my life, and we let it seep into our ability to help others. And or it just feels misaligned to show up on social media. So I want to tell you guys a story. This is funny. I've never told this story before, and it's embarrassing. And I just remembered it after I was talking to this gal in the DMs. And when I had moved to Los Angeles in 2015, and because I was kind of a quote unquote, I guess, public figure as a blogger at that time, I had shared, if you're a blogger, you share a lot of your personal life on your blog. And so this client was coming into LA, and we were going to work on her business for a day. She was flying in, we are going to work on her business for a day. And at this time, I was living by myself in LA, and my ex-husband, who we were separated, also moved to LA a couple months later, but he lived down the street from me. I don't know what happened, but he had to borrow my car. We were still we were friendly, right? We were friendly, even though we're separated, but we're living separately. But I hadn't announced or talked about on social media the fact that we had separated. And so had this massive amount of embarrassment, because I'm like, I'm still showing up as if we're together. I'm just really not talking about anything. I'm not talking about him. I'm not talking about anything that's happening. People are kind of seeing me in Los Angeles and maybe wondering, I'm sure. But if someone DM'd me and said, hey, are you divorced or whatever? I just didn't answer any DMs. So anyway, this client comes in, and my ex-husband had borrowed my car. And I needed my car to take this client to her hotel or something. So the two of us, me and the client, met at a coffee shop. And I was like, okay, let me go get my car to drive you. And I remember it felt like this, I was going to get found out, because I didn't want to tell her I was literally going to my ex-husband's place to pick up my car. So I was like, oh, let me just, but he wasn't there. So I had to go just to the garage. I'm sure she was like, why are we not going up to your house? It wasn't my house. It was his house. And so, or his apartment. So all of that to say, I remember just that feeling of, God, I haven't talked about this publicly yet. And the person who messaged me, I said, look, you may never talk about this publicly. You don't have to. But I know for me as a blogger, and because my ex-husband was such a big part of my story and my business and whatever, I was like, at some point I'm going to, but I'm not ready to. And I still have massive embarrassment around everything. I don't know how to talk about it. I'm still in massive amounts of pain. And I just remember the awkwardness of this exchange when this client came to Los Angeles for her day with me. I had so much anxiety because I didn't want her to know that I wasn't with him. And I was like, we're trying to get the car, but I didn't, the keys were somewhere else. And I don't know, it's just, I don't remember the specifics. But I remember just the feeling of embarrassment and shame and judgment, and how it made me feel showing up in that moment to coach that client. It ended up being fine. She had a great day, whatever. But there is this feeling that when you are going there's through something in your life that is not perfect. And as women, especially driven women, especially if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you have drive and you're ambitious. There is a feeling of, if something in my life is not going well, that it reflects everything in my life. It's a personal, it's personally reflective of me as a person. It's like, okay, if this thing is going sideways, that means I'm bad. We take it on, we make it personal. And I think that if you are having a relationship issue, it does make you question, am I even doing the right thing? Who am I to help somebody? I don't even have my shit together. And you can really spiral into that. And so I think the question to ask yourself, to get yourself back into action, be able to show up in your business and keep moving forward, is to ask yourself, do I still have the expertise to help somebody? Your expertise doesn't go. The thing that goes is your confidence, right? That's the thing that goes. That's the thing that goes, is your security, your confidence, that maybe takes a hit. But you still have the expertise. You still have the theory. You still have the best practices. You still have the strategies. So even though in that moment, you may not feel like you are completely embodying the strategies, you do have the strategies. And so remember that the theory and your ability to help someone, that never goes anywhere. You still have the knowledge, you still have the coaching ability, you still have all of that. And I always remember that even if my life isn't perfect, I can still help someone with theirs. I don't need all my shit together all the time 100%, because if that was the case, none of us would coach. A sixth grader can teach a fifth grader something. You can add value without being perfect. you can add value without being perfect. I think oftentimes we think, well, if I can't be perfect in everything, then why am I even going to try? And this is very just sort of all or nothing mentality that to me doesn't make any sense, especially if the goal is to continue to show up in your business. And so one of the things that has really helped me, especially in that moment, there was probably, I would say, about 18 months where I felt like my self esteem was in the toilet. And it's really easy to, if you have one part of your life where you do feel like your confidence is taking a hit, for it to extend in other parts of your life. I had this moment where I had to realize that the way that I could start to feel back in my power was helping other people. And what I mean by that is exchanging insecurity and feelings of not good enough and channeling it into helping others and adding value outside of myself. Because what was happening was I was getting so in my head, right? Oh, I'm not good enough. This thing's not happening to me. I feel have this shame. I'm like being secretive about this stuff and no one knows about it. It feels out of alignment. How can I show up with the energy to help other people when I'm like, when honestly my energy is just, I feel sad all the time and I'm having these heavy conversations and nothing feels light right now. And if I can help somebody in that moment, it is distracting me from the rumination, right? The rumination is like, why did this happen? What's going to happen to me? I'm in scarcity a little bit, right? Maybe I'm scarcity in money. Maybe I'm scarcity in support. Maybe the person I'm breaking up with was my main support system. I just remember that was definitely when I went through my breakup with my ex-husband, that was one of the first things was like, I have no one to talk my business with. Like, who is there? And it felt really lonely. And so maybe it's like this logistical shift that you're going through, like, who's my person? Where's my support system? It could also be, the rumination of asking why did it happen? Trying to piece things together, trying to recognize patterns, I don't want this to happen to me again, right? Like as women, especially, we process quite a bit all the time. We're constantly thinking about stuff, trying to pattern recognition, all these things. And so when we ruminate, we're in our head. If we can get out of those thoughts and feelings and rumination and into action, helping someone else, we feel better. We feel better when we are helping. It is not about us because, y'all, I will say rumination is, it's self-absorbed. We all do it, but it really is self-absorbed. Let me think about my stuff more. Let me ruminate on this more. Let me, and we can't control our thoughts. We can control our reactions to our thoughts. We can't control our thoughts. And there's a period of time, especially when we're going through something like a huge life upheaval, where we are going to be ruminating for a time. But I know for me, the times in which I have that glimpse of power, it's when I put my own shit on the shelf. And I'm like, Jill, you got a fucking coaching call. You got to get your shit together, put your shit on the shelf and show up and help the person in front of you. And that is how I start to feel more fulfilled. I'm like, okay, my shit is still a garbage, dumpster fire over here. My shit's still a dumpster fire. But you know what? When I'm showing up in service to other people and I see their lives changing as a result of the mentor I'm doing, the coaching I'm doing, the transformation we're facilitating, now I have something that fills me up. Because this shit over here and my life upheaval, my relationship is making me feel shitty. But if I can help someone else, I'm getting out of my head, I'm getting into action, and I'm helping someone achieve their dreams. And your business in these moments can be the outlet or the place that you do have control in a time when other parts of your life feel out of control. And I know for me, people do different things during breakups if they're running a business, and depending on the situation, the circumstances. For me, my business was sort of the anchor. It was like, wow, this is the only thing that is just mine. This is the part of my life that I have complete control over. Now, I don't have control over like when people buy and all that kind of stuff, but I have control of my actions in this realm. And I know for me, it was kind of an anchor. It was like a talisman. It was like, okay, this is my thing that I'm holding on to, because this other part of my life, this relationship stuff, this relationship upheaval, and I'm moving and all these kind of feelings I'm having, that feels out of control. I don't have any control of that. That feels disorienting. That feels misaligned. That feels messy. But this thing over here, I can get instant gratification. I can post on social media and help someone change their life. I can sign a client, get on a coaching call, help someone take action. I can put out a lead magnet, help people get a win. I can show up for a coaching call, coach some fucking people, help them take the next step. When we get into action in a place where we're helping other people and it's not about us ruminating, that is when we start to pull ourselves out of that catastrophizing energy, that sort of like staying mired in the emotions. Now, of course, you need to deal with the emotions, But I find instead of being like, wow, my business is taking a hit, I was like, well, the business is the only part of my life that I actually can control because everything else is out of my control. I'm feeling like in a time when it's a lot of uncertainty over here, the only thing that is certain is my ability to show up and help others. And for me personally, my business saved me. I tell that story quite a bit. It's like it was the thing not only that saved me energetically and sort of emotionally, what we're talking about here, but it saved me financially. When I left my marriage, I had my own money. I had a business that was making money. I was grateful that I was able to leave. A lot of women are not because they don't have the money to, which of course is part of the why at Jill Fit. And so I do think that if you could look at your business as being the thing that could maybe pull you out of your thoughts, even if it's just for an hour, I'm going to get in a coaching call and I'm going to do a reel. I'm going to post on social. I'm going to edit this video. I'm going to put together a carousel. You do not have to tell the story. You don't have to be open with your audience about this if you don't want to. If you want to, eventually you can, but you don't have to. But you do have to figure out a way. And for me, the thing that pulled me out of the wallowing was getting into action in my business. And sometimes there is going to feel like a little bit misalignment, right? You're going to be like me showing up to that day with that girl, being like, hey, let's work on your business. I'm so excited. In the back of my head, I'm like, fuck, I got to go get my car from my ex-husband's parking garage. And that's going to be awkward. And like, I'm trying to pretend like everything's good. So yeah, maybe there is a little bit of that. But I think it's okay to show up in misalignment a little bit. Not everything needs to feel good all the time. You don't have to constantly show up and be like, I need to be in the headspace to show up. This is the difference between an amateur and a pro. And that's not, I don't want to say that. I don't mean like in a derogatory sense. I mean, a pro is someone who makes money. A pro is like, I got to go to fucking work. My advice always is to put yourself on the hook. Sorry, I've been talking all day, is to put yourself so much on the hook that you have to show up. So one of the things that I would recommend doing to get you into action is launching something, like launch a freebie, launch a challenge, launch a group, do some kind of new product or program. Because when you talk about that publicly and you put yourself on the hook publicly, you're like, okay, shit, I got to do it. And you will get yourself into action. If you continue making it an option, maybe I could work on my business. You're not going to do it. That's what an amateur does. An amateur sits around and waits for inspiration. Oh, do I feel like it today? Does it feel aligned for me to show up? My energy's not really there. My emotions are off a little bit. You have 1 or 2 days like that. That's cool. But like, if we're trying to build this thing, you have to show up regardless of your mood that day. What are you doing? Because this is just your job. And there are people out there who are looking to you for help. And so that's why I say, try to turn your insecurity or turn your uncertainty into obligation. Obligation meaning like, I'm obligated to fucking help people. Like, people out here struggling. I need to work to help these people. I can't not show up. That's why I like public declaration, because as soon as I say it, hey, I'm going to do this thing. Hey, we're doing this. I'm like, cool, I'm back in action. Even if I don't feel like it, I rip the Band-Aid off and I go for it. And so I don't know, this is a lot of sort of mindset work, but number one, I just want you guys to take this away. Number one, this is really common. If you are in business for long enough, chances are you're going to go through something really big in your life, in your personal life, and it is going to affect your business for sure. Everyone will deal with it in a different way. I'm never going to tell you to like just force yourself and like you got to just be stronger and have more willpower. Like, you have to honor your feelings for sure. But that's why I say, if you can channel the energy into helping other people, it gets you out of your head for a second, it gets you out of rumination and thinking about your own shit constantly, and gets you into feeling better about yourself and starting to build back any confidence or self-esteem that you've lost. And I know for me, maybe it was selfish, but I was using my clients as a way to make me feel better. Like, hey, let me just get you a win because I feel like my shit is a dumpster fire right now. So let me get you some wins so that I can have a piece of that energy. Maybe that's selfish, but to me, that felt like a win-win at the time. And then you have to trust that it's not going to last forever. And that's what's really hard about this is like, it can feel, especially when you're in it, like, God, am I ever going to turn the corner on this? Am I ever going to stop wondering about this and trying to piece things together and struggle with this and think about this all the time? The answer is yes, but you take it one day at a time. That's why I do really think having a personal brand is so powerful, because imagine that, like, this is your little corner of the internet that no one else gets. Like, you can create whatever the fuck you want there. To me, that's amazing. It's free on social media. Are you kidding me? And so I just want to validate that this is really common. And just so you know, because I do work with so many people, like, this happens all the time. And I'm not going to say you need to like force yourself, but I am going to challenge you to show up even when it's uncomfortable. Show up in a way that maybe might feel misaligned for a time, but that's not going to last forever. But so you asked, what's the minimum effective dose? What's the minimum I can show up just to maintain this low level of relevancy? And I did a lot of shit like repost stuff. I was like, I just don't have the juice today. I got to repost some shit. Like, I just don't have any fucking ideas. I'm so distracted. Let me repost stuff because I'm going to just maintain a little, or I'd phone it in. Here's a workout, right? Here's a recipe, like not stuff that did not take a lot of effort. But I was like, okay, I want to still maintain some relevancy here. I'm going to, instead of posting 5 days a week, I'm going to go to 2 or 3, but at least I'm going to still be there. And I think all of those things really at the time helped me quite a bit, and maybe could help you too. So this is normal. This is really common. And I think if you channel it back into helping others, that can get you out of your head and get you into action and really start to see like, okay, it's not just about me. And these people do really need my help. And I do have value. And my shit doesn't have to 100% be together for me to help somebody, because I still have the theory, I still have the expertise, I still have the experience. Just because this one thing is not going perfect right now doesn't take away from my ability to help someone. Good? All right. So I know it was a little bit mindset-y today. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much for you guys. Thanks for listening. And this is just a great reminder that if you guys do have something that you would love for me to share on the podcast, or you have some questions about what's going on in your own life, your own business, feel free to shoot me a DM. I love getting your ideas for posts. Ideas for podcasts. I do quite a bit of them, especially when I do the question box. So I do appreciate those so much, and I take them all to heart. Thank you guys so much for being here. As usual, it is just an honor to have your earballs for 30 minutes a week. And have a great week, and I'll see you soon.